Good evening, everyone. In this week's parsha, the Torah refers us to the fact that within the Jewish people, there will arise people who want to deny and distort the Jewish tradition and wish to push us away from the service of God. The Mesit and the Mediach. In the Gemara, there are technical definitions for both of these people because we are dealing with a criminal offense. And Isser has a Chiyuv Misa here. So therefore, it has to be clearly defined and all the technicalities have to be met. However, in the general idea of Mesis and Mediach is not necessarily that technical. So the Torah points out to us that it's a societal thing. In fact, we could say that society itself can be a Mesis and a Mediach, can push us away from the service of God. We see how influenced we are by society, by what other people say. Why should I care what somebody puts on the internet? But we see the enormous effect that it does have. So we are prone to that. It's something that is present. And in the history of the Jewish people, there have always been Meisisim u'Medichim. Now, Meisis is someone that convinces you. He, so to speak, he approaches it from an intellectual, rational point of view. And Moshe points out later in the Parsha, in Dvorim, that the Jewish people will say, Eicho yavdu agoyim o'ele es Eloheihem v'esechein gamoni. How can it be that 7 billion people are wrong? So therefore, v'esechein gamoni. So then I have to, so to speak, bow to the popular will, to the general ideas of the time. And Moshe warns against that because of the fact that the truth has nothing to do with popularity. And throughout Jewish history, the fact that the Jews did not succumb to majority cultures is what preserved the Jewish people and is what makes us unique. So in the time of the Bayis Sheni, so the Misyavnim, the Hellenists, of which Josephus says that over a third of the Jewish people followed them. We should not think that the Hashmonaim were universally popular. That would go against human nature. So the Misyavnim wanted to make the Jewish people Greek. Then there were Jews that were assimilated with Rome. And it's that way throughout Jewish history from every period of time. The great Mesisim and Madichim by Klal Yisrael were the early Christians. And one of the features of a Madiach is that he is not willing to let you believe what you want to believe. It's one thing to say, I believe A, B, and C, and you believe D, E, and F, so we're different, you're wrong. But the Madiach says, no, I believe A, B, C, and you're not entitled to believe D, E, and F. It's simply not within your purview to do so. So in our time, we saw that in the Soviet Union, that destroyed the Jewish religion. It isn't that they were selling you communism. They were forcibly making it impossible for you to remain Jewish. And that's what it means to push you away. It isn't that they said you're wrong and forget it. But they created conditions that made it impossible to remain Jewish. And we see that in the world today, in many societies. Is that it's not enough that you don't believe like I do, but I'm going to force you not to believe anything the way you want at all. I'm going to create circumstances that don't allow it to happen. And that's a great danger in our society. And it's done through what looks like good motives. I'm going to make you adopt my curriculum in your school because my curriculum will produce better students and your curriculum doesn't. Or my curriculum will provide for better citizens, more wage earners, and yours doesn't. So therefore, I enforce my curriculum upon your educational system. That's a reality in our time. It's a reality, unfortunately, all over the Jewish world, wherever Jews are. They're always subject to what I had a principal from a day school call me today. School started. The third day of school, the state sent in somebody to teach critical race society. So the principal wanted to know what to do, as though I have an answer. But that's Mediach. And you're taking 6, 7, 8-year-old children and you're indoctrinating them immediately in all sorts of false ideas that are anti-Torah. So what do you expect is going to happen here? And that's the struggle. Now, one of the facets of the exile until now when, for instance, Jews were under the Tsar. So the Tsar didn't really care what went on with the Jews. But only when the enlightened Jews began, so then they got the Tsar involved. And then you had all of the issues of the 19th century in Jewish life in Eastern Europe, which affect us until today. And you have the same problem here. We have a government here. We have a Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education has to tell us what to do. And as often happens in life, you look back 100 years and you see that all the experts were wrong and all of the great ideas were worthless. And meanwhile, you destroyed millions of people. See that China is over 1 billion people. It's going to be, it's worthless. So the Torah warns us about that. The Torah warns us that there will be such situations and that we should be aware of them. And it's very hard to stand against the tide. It's very hard to say no. And then Forshim therefore point out that why is Mesis Mediach, why does he suffer such a serious punishment? Why is it a capital offense? So even though the Gemara tells us that rarely, if ever, was capital punishment enforced by the Sanhedrin, but it was a sin that was a capital sin. It was meant to make an impression upon people, to realize how dangerous it was. So Mesis Mediach is a very dangerous thing. In our time, the media is Mesis Mediach. Shapes opinions, creates situations, decides what is information and what is disinformation. It's a tremendous weapon. And again, these are all issues that are relevant. We face them daily. That's why the Torah warned us about it. The Torah was especially vehement about these things because that's what drives the Jewish people away. All of the various movements that have occurred in the Jewish world over the past 2 or 3 centuries. So most of them are fall unfortunately into the category of Mesis Mediach. In order to create the new Jew, they wanted to create the new Judaism and end up with no Judaism. And the new Jew never really came into being either. So these are very serious matters. And it's a very difficult time we live in. We have a tendency to ignore what is really happening. The Torah did not want us to do that. The Torah wanted us to be aware. And it wanted us to strengthen ourselves, not to fall into the trap of the Mesisim Umadichim, but to remain loyal to the truth and to the God of Israel. Rabbi Chananya ben Akashi Omer Rotzak HaKadosh Hu B'Zakav Sh'Yisrael Aficha Chirva Lahem Torah Mitzvos Shenamar I don't know if it's man should go.